Okay guys, it's time for another one of these Habs news updates, and in this video we're going to talk about some players that could potentially return tomorrow night. We'll talk about some recent roster changes, take a look at the latest updates on the GM search, have a little peekaboo at what a former Montreal Canadien Scout had to say about Shane Wright, and just some other weird, bizarro kind of stuff. But first, before we begin, if you're a fan of the Habs, or just watching Lyle Odeline, throw a headbutt at Darren Langdon and then smile about it, then please consider subscribing to my channel, as I upload a ton of hockey content, and would really enjoy having some more of you grasshoppers tag along for the ride. Now, we got a lot of little minor roster movements to cover. Let's get the plugs out of the way first. Oscar Wiener and Laurent Daffing have both been assigned to Montreal's taxi squad. So it's safe to assume that these guys won't be playing tomorrow night, unless something crazy happens between now and then, like some more players get put in the COVID protocol or somebody falls down a flight of stairs. But let's hope it all stays good. Jake Allen, who looked pretty uncomfortable during the last game against Boston, did return to Montreal. There wasn't any updates since then, and the fact that he's gone back home during this whole road trip tells me we probably won't see him return for a while. He was definitely in some discomfort in his land down under, and there ain't nothing funny about that. On to some good news. Dominique Ducharme would address the media yesterday after practice, and he told them that he's pretty confident power horse Josh Anderson will return on Monday night. Josh Anderson would confirm this as well, saying that he's 100% ready to go. Ready to go. Ready to go. I don't know about you guys, but it's going to be refreshing seeing Anderson return to the lineup. It always is. He's just one of those guys that you actually notice when he's on the ice. He's big, he's fast, he hits, he plays an intense game. But the only scary thing about him is that exact style of play has given his body the durability of a Dorito. So let's hope he stays healthy. He's got a long contract. We all love him, and we don't want to see him injured. Moving on, Billy full of ravioli Tyler Toffoli may also be returning to the lineup really soon, which is great. Maybe he gets to pot a few goals and his value increases right before the trade deadline. Ducharme would say Toffoli could be returning just after the Avalanche and the Golden Knights games. Ducharme would not offer up any updates on Byron or Price because nothing has changed, and apparently they're both skating in Montreal alongside Jesse Ylonen, Alex Belzile, and our little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Now it's time to dip into some weird news. Yesterday was the anniversary of the infamous John Scott trade, which led to quite a bit of controversy at the time. In 2016, Scott was supposed to suit up and play in the NHL All-Star Game. The league kicked up a fuss, really made themselves look like a bunch of assholes. And of course, Montreal managed to get themselves involved by acquiring him and allowing him to evaporate the remainder of his career. John Scott would go on to play the All-Star Game. I think that was like the only All-Star Game I probably watched in the last 20 years, just because of the hilarity of seeing John Scott in action. It was awesome. And if we put on our goggles here and take a closer look, the Canadiens did send their former first-round draft pick, Jarred Tinordi, to the Arizona Coyotes in this package, which in my opinion just goes to show just how some of these first-rounders have panned out over the years. Tinordi went from being a first-round draft pick to being traded for John Scott. Jeez. On to some more GM talk now, and when is this gonna end? Just put the names in a hat and pick one, Gordy. Elliot Friedman would confirm that the third and final candidate is indeed Kent Hughes, which gives us Matthew Darche, Daniel Briere, and Kent Hughes as the Three Stooges who are leading the way. Apparently, the Canadiens are giving Hughes some time, to decide whether or not he actually wants to get involved in this shit show or not, before they actually go ahead and pick one of these guys. And that's worded kind of strangely, because that makes me think that maybe the job is indeed for Kent Hughes if he wants it. Supposedly, if he takes this role as Habs GM, he's going to be giving up a large chunk of change as being a player agent, so who knows? Maybe he doesn't even want to get involved in this anyway, and one of Darche or Briere will get in. Also, according to Eric Engels, it's worth noting that the Anaheim Ducks have also gone out and asked for permission to speak to Matthew Darche. Won't you look at that? All of a sudden, old Darche is becoming a popular name around the league. It is kind of ironic because the Ducks now have a bunch of French-speaking candidates in their resume pile as well, with Martin Jr. and friends. I mean, who would have ever guessed that the Anaheim Ducks would have a requirement that their GM needs to speak French? Now that is some pretty funny shit right there. Moving on, the next game is set to go ahead on Monday night against the Arizona Coyotes, and this is a big one. It's the battle for last place, the battle for the best shot at the first overall draft pick this season, who will most likely be Shane Wright and Grant McKegg, or as I like to call him, Grant McBillykegg, who happens to be a former scout of the Montreal Canadiens, gave some of his insight on Shane Wright. Here's what he had to say, quote, Shane Wright is a smart player with decent skills and hands, who anticipates to play well. He's got good vision and a very good shot, high character, and a safe pick. You are getting a top 2 center, but what you may not be getting is an elite number 1 center. His floor is number 2 center, and his ceiling is a productive number 1 center. That's still something you get in the top 5 in the draft, and every team would like to have in the system. Just don't be expecting him to be one of the top 5 centers in the league, okay? So basically, for those of you who are really putting this guy up on a pedestal right now, you might want to tone it down just a couple of notches. I think he's going to be a wicked player. I'd love for him to play for the Habs, but Shane Wright is not like the Oilers picking Connor McDavid. Geez, he's not even like the Leafs picking Austin Matthews. It doesn't seem like he's going to be the kind of player that's going to turn Montreal around all by his lonesome self. But I mean, hey, he would still be a huge addition, no doubt. But next year, the draft class of 2023 is going to be the year to fall into the shitter head first. And I'm sure Jeff Gorton's big brain is thinking the same. Anyway, guys, that does it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you didn't, I hope somebody puts moose shit in your pockets. If any other Habs news is released today, I'll pin the information at the top of the comments section. And hey, I'll see you next time.